Life sentence for youth, 13 years old. September the 25th, 1947. Pike County boy believed youngest to receive penalty. Armed robbery involving an automobile, a watch, and $4.48 in cash may soon start a Pike County boy on an early start on a life prison sentence. The youth, Crawford Casebolt, 13 years old, was prosecuted in the Pike Circuit Court after a juvenile court hearing on a charge of the armed robbery last July of Harold E. Roberts of Virgie. The jury fixed his penalty at life. Circuit Judge R. Monroe Fields will pronounce sentence at the end of the circuit court term. The boy is believed to be one of the youngest persons anywhere ever to face so stiff a penalty. Casebolt will be sentenced along with two companions who pleaded guilty to armed robbery charges and will receive the same punishment. The three were arrested in connection with the robbery of Harold E. Roberts, 23 years old, of Virgie, Kentucky, last July. The others are Homer Zimmerman, 19, and Mark Smith, 23. They and Casebolt are from Ford's branch. Before his trial, young Casebolt told Commonwealth's attorney J. A. Runyon he committed the robbery because he wanted to leave home and needed some money. He said he stole the gun used in the robbery from his parents. Runyon said Roberts was driving home from Pikeville when he stopped to pick up Casebolt, who was hitchhiking. Roberts reported the others jumped from behind a bush and robbed him at the point of a gun. The victim said he was stripped of his clothes and forced to run away with a gun pointed at him. He reported the loss of his car, watch, and $4.48. Runyon said Casebolt admitted giving $1 to each of his friends and keeping the remainder for himself. In the course of the trial, Zimmerman testified that Casebolt wanted to shoot the victim and was persuaded not to. Runyon said the three fled to Virginia, then to Ohio, and back to Kentucky, where they were captured. As far as authorities knew, young Casebolt had no previous record. A life sentence is the minimum penalty for armed robbery in Kentucky, as the death penalty can be invoked. Judge Fields set aside young Casebolt's sentence today, September the 2nd, 1947, and dismissed the indictment. From life sentence, Boys Town founder promises his help. John Young Brown, a Lexington attorney, filed a motion Wednesday to have the Pike Circuit Court's life sentence of 13-year-old Crawford Casebolt set aside so that the boy might enter Boys Town. Brown said he was not employed by anyone, but had been attracted to the case by newspaper accounts. He said he was naturally interested because he has a 13-year-old son and feels that justice has not been done in this case. Brown said he had reached word from Father Flanagan, head of the famed Nebraska school, that Casebolt would be accepted if the judgment could be set aside. Casebolt, along with two older youths, was convicted of armed robbery of Harold Roberts, 23 years old, of Virgie, Kentucky, and was sentenced to life imprisonment last Friday by Circuit Judge Monroe Fields. The court decreed that the 7th grade schoolboy be removed to the House of Reform at Greendale until he is 21 years old, after which it was directed that he be transferred to the LaGrange Reformatory to serve the rest of his sentence at hard labor. Casebolt's companions, Homer Zimmerman, 19 years old, and Mark Smith, 23 years old, were sentenced to life at LaGrange. Brown, a former United States Representative, and County Attorney S.P. Kazee met at Ford's Branch, the boys' home, and interviewed friends and relatives of Casebolt. Brown said he talked with Crawford's schoolteacher and a minister, as well as many neighbors. They all say Crawford is a good boy, Brown said. Without exception, they said the boy was honest and had never been in any trouble before this. Brown said he would file the motion on the ground that no formal notice was served on the boy's parents in county court before the case was changed to circuit court. The attorney got in touch with Father Flanagan before the sentencing and was told the boy would be accepted. This week the following telegram was received by Kazee, who had called Boys Town at Brown's request. Pursuant to our agreement to take Crawford Casebolt to Boys Town, surprised to note, Associated Press dispatch gives condition and life sentence at hard labor. Please advise what can be done. Feel best interest of society and this child's welfare will be served by having him paroled to Father Flanagan at Boys Town, Nebraska. 5 months later, in February of 48, Crawford Casebolt flees Boys Town with 2 other boys. So that didn't last long, him staying over at Boys Town. And it says he was in custody in Lexington, Nebraska, after running away from there. Casebolt was admitted to Boys Town last fall, which was about a little over 5 months ago, after his life sentence on a robbery charge given him at Pikeville was remitted. The case attracted wide attention. It was even in Time magazine because of his age. A charge of being a juvenile delinquent was filed against Casebolt after he and 2 companions, also from Boys Town, were arrested at nearby Gothenburg, Nebraska. And the county attorney there, John Neff of Dawson County, Nebraska, said juvenile delinquency charges were filed against all 3 boys in connection with the theft of a car. So he stole another car. After hearing before Judge M.O. Bates, the companions, James Fritter, 15 years old, of Miami, I guess that means Miami, it could mean Ohio or Florida, I don't know which Miami, and Charles Stakeland, 15 years old, from Cynthiana, Kentucky. So he wasn't that far. Charles was not far from Ford's Branch over in Pike County. They were ordered to the boys' training school at Kearney, Nebraska. And they said Casebolt's case was continued until a parole officer arrives. Young Casebolt is jailed again. June 16, 1948. Mother surrenders boy to officers. Crawford Casebolt, youth whose life prison sentence for armed robbery was remitted last year so he could enter Boys Town, Nebraska, was surrendered to police today by his mother, ending a 2-day search. The boy escaped from late Father Flanagan's Nebraska institution and was apprehended at Lexington, Nebraska in February. Police Chief Jude Williamson said today's arrest ended a 2-day search in eastern Kentucky and Virginia for Casebolt, wanted in connection with 2 recent robberies here. A 15-year-old companion had been arrested earlier and admitted taking part in the robberies. The announcement was first report on Casebolt's whereabouts since February 24th. At that time, he was being held in Nebraska pending the arrival of parole officers. How he happened to be in this section this week, eastern Kentucky and Pike County, was not explained, but Chief Williamson said they must have just let him go. Williamson said the youth denied the robberies when brought to the police station by his mother, Miss R. Casebolt, but later today admitted them at a preliminary hearing before juvenile judge Paul Pruitt. Williamson said Casebolt and his companion told officers they had planned 3 more robberies for this week. Casebolt is being held without bond. When Commonwealth Attorney J.A. Runyon, who has been out of town, was informed of the latest developments, he indicated the boy will be tried again in circuit court on the original armed robbery charge. I had decided that if Casebolt violated his parole, I would try him on the armed robbery charge, Runyon said. He indicated the boy's case, now under juvenile court jurisdiction, would be transferred to the circuit court. Another trial in circuit court would make possible another life sentence, he said. Casebolt was granted a new trial last fall upon conviction in circuit court on the ground of a flaw in the proceedings. The trial was pending when Judge R. Monroe Fields remitted the life sentence to allow Casebolt to go to Boys Town. The much publicized boy was convicted here last September and sentenced to life at hard labor, the mandatory penalty in his case. He and 2 other youths, Homer Zimmerman and Mark Smith, were charged with robbing Harold Roberts of Virgie of his automobile, his watch, and about $4 in cash. However, because of Casebolt's age, he was 13 at the time, attorney John Y. Brown of Lexington led a successful fight to have the sentence set aside so Casebolt could go to Boys Town. Father Flanagan had sent Brown reports of Casebolt's good grades and remarked that the youth was adjusting himself well to the school. The police chief said the recent robberies in which Casebolt is charged occurred June the 5th at a sporting goods store and June 14th at a furniture store. He said the loot included money, guns, and other equipment. County officers went to Casebolt's home in the Fords Branch section Tuesday but were unable to find him. Williamson said the youth's father informed police he was afraid of young Casebolt, who reportedly was armed. Casebolt sent to Greendale till he's 21. Pikeville, Kentucky, June 22nd. 14-year-old Crawford Casebolt, who faced the prospect of a life sentence at hard labor behind prison walls less than a year ago, heard himself sentenced today at the House of Reform at Greendale until he is 21. The black-haired youth from Ford's Branch showed emotion in public for the first time since his troubles started. In an attempted robbery, or armed robbery, 18 months ago, he wept as County Judge Irvin Pruitt imposed the penalty. Judge Pruitt said, "I have only one alternative. I could hold you for action by the circuit court, but I'm not going to do that because they could only impose another life sentence. You have broken your parole, and I sentence you to Greendale until you are 21. Until the sentence was pronounced, Casebolt had remained defiant. The hearing was held on a charge that he had broken into 2 places of business here recently. The boy flatly denied any connection with breaking and entering Goff's furniture store, but he did admit that he and a companion entered the Cyrus sporting goods store. The boy said he took 2 pistols. He testified he gave 1 pistol to a companion, 16-year-old Homer Johnson. Judge Pruitt persisted in questioning about the Goff store robbery. Casebolt interrupted. "Don't look at me like that. I was not there and I can prove it." Miss Pearl Casebolt, mother of the boy, cried as she testified that she could prove he had not participated in that robbery. The boy was convicted along with 2 older companions on the armed robbery charge last September. Through the help of John Y. Brown, attorney, Lexington, Casebolt's sentence was set aside, enabling him to enter the late Father Flanagan's institution. It hadn't worked. But he escaped from Boys Town. He was at large with 2 companions until recaptured 5 days later at Gothenburg, Nebraska. After imposing the sentence today, Judge Pruitt disclosed how the boy happened to be in Pike County until he was surrendered to police by his mother last Tuesday. Judge Pruitt said that with the knowledge of himself and 1 juvenile officer, the boy had returned to Pike County and paroled to relatives in the hope of giving him opportunity to prove himself. But it hasn't worked, Pruitt added. Casebolt's companion in the Cyrus holdup will be tried later. His companions in the original holdup are serving life sentences. They were charged with robbing Harold Roberts, a Virgie, of his car and $4 in cash. I hope young Casebolt found his way in life. He is listed on Find a Grave as James Crawford Casebolt, born December the 3rd, 1933, Kentucky. Passed away June the 12th, 1996, in Ohio. He is buried in the Rittman Cemetery in Wayne County, Ohio. His parents are buried at Ford's Branch Cemetery in Pike County.